Good morning. Happy International Women's Day to all the amazing women out there, and thank you so much for celebrating with us today. We hope you leave today's event, empowering women in the events industry, feeling uplifted and inspired. My name is Lauren, and I am the marketing coordinator at Expo Pass. If you are unfamiliar with us, we are an event technology platform that provides tools for event organizers like you to plan, track, and host any type of event, whether in person, virtual, or hybrid. Feel free to check us out later if you want to learn more. I'll drop the link in the chat. A few housekeeping items to note before we get started. Today's event is a discussion, and we love for our attendees to be part of the discussion. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat or the Q&A box at any time. We'll try our best to answer them as they come in, and we will have some time at the end for additional questions. We are recording today's session, and it will be available for you to watch on demand. All attendees seeking CECs will earn 1 continuing education hour through the Events Industry Council for attending this live event. So now let's come together and empower one another to achieve our goals and reach new heights in the events industry. Let me begin by introducing our 3 powerhouse panelists who are here to share their insights and knowledge with us over the next hour. First up, we have a returning speaker, Channing Mueller, the principal of DCM Communications, a seasoned marketing and sales coach with over 20 years of experience in the communications industry. She is an award-winning expert who helps event professionals and small business owners achieve business growth through refined marketing strategies. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Next up, we have Cara Campuzano, the founder of KC Creative. She has spent 16 years in sales and marketing, specifically in the hospitality and events industry. After the pandemic hit in 2020, Cara pivoted her career, like many, and founded KC Creative, a social media management and marketing agency. She is launching her new venture, Events by KC Creative, offering event planning services very soon. Welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And finally, we have Michelle Harris, the founder of Boss Track and the host of Her Hype Squad with Boss Track podcast. Michelle is passionate about leadership and development and mentoring. She is building an ecosystem of new women leaders who are driven to become high impact, confident, and experienced women leaders who want to give back and provide mentorship to new women leaders. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Channing, Cara, and Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. So get ready to be inspired, and let's jump right into the first question directed toward all of our panelists. So as we know, you are all leaders in the industry. We want to hear how you got here, what motivated you to start a business, and what that journey was like. So we're going to start with Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you first. I feel honored to be the first one here. So my leadership or my journey in starting Boss Track was, I spent about over 25 years in leadership positions. And a few years ago, I was working for a company that sold to a private equity firm, and I just used that opportunity to move down here to Miami Beach with my husband, who had just retired from the Marine Corps. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? I need to start something. I need to do something that I feel like I'm giving back. So I kept coming back to my passion for individual and team development just throughout my leadership career. Even though I was in finance and accounting, that really was my strong point and what I really enjoyed doing. So I developed Boss Track to provide a fun and engaging environment and community for new women leaders to learn leadership, learn skills, to find mentors that they can connect with. And we're working on building an online community now. But our goal is to help new women leaders feel empowered and prepared to have a high impact and influence in their leadership careers.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you, Michelle. Channing?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, I forgot I was supposed to jump in here. So, yeah, I actually, very funny, Michelle is in Miami now, and that is actually where my career started, was in Miami. So I originally started working in journalism and had all of these wonderful dreams. I wanted to be the editor of a magazine. And then some of you may recognize the very first magazine that I actually worked for right out of college was BizBash. I knew this much about events when I started, but I knew a lot about journalism and advertising and layouts and actually producing a magazine. And so the wonderful founders kind of took a chance on me, and they're like, yep, you seem like you know what you're talking about. Like, you can learn. Okay, let's do this. And, the job where I was supposed to interview event planners about how they pulled all of these amazing things together, I learned so much about the business and had to test my own creative brain to work in a different way, because they would explain all of these amazing designs that they came up with. And I'm like, I'm gonna need to see that, because I can't envision it. I can give you all the words in the world, but I'm not seeing this vision. So over the years, I actually started to learn that. And I loved working with BizBash, loved getting into this industry and meeting all of the different people, the vendors and the planners and the venues that all come together. Decided to leave Miami, looking for the next challenge. Ended up in DC working on the advertising side of media for another company. So there I was also coaching the sales team on how to sell advertising more effectively, how to design it to reach a specific goal that gets people to move to the next step, not unlike how you need to attract your specific target attendees to your event, get them engaged. All of these things are very similar across all the different ways of marketing. And as I was working in advertising, BizBash asked me to start covering events in DC. Who says no to that, right? Like, this was a chance to learn more in a different market. So I started doing that on the side. And as I continued to kind of grow this event network, and I continued my corporate career, eventually moving from advertising to a software company, working on mergers and acquisitions, things I never thought that this creative journalism brain would be working on. I learned so much about how I could put all of these together. And so DCM Communications was born, providing marketing services directly to event professionals, right? And as the industry kind of evolved, that became a lot more of also coaching internal planners on how to do more effective event marketing, right? How to get the people that you want at your event to come, to get excited, to stay in touch, like all of those things. And so that's kind of what a big focus of mine is. And obviously working with a lot of badass women, because we are the ones that are dominating this industry. No offense, gentlemen, but
For those doing
there's a lot more of us in events than there are of you. And it's great. It is the one space where we might be able to say that. And that's not always the case in other industries. So yeah.
Very true. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, this is one thing I didn't know about you. So my husband is a Marine Corps veteran. So we have something in common there. Anyways, yeah, I actually started hospitality and tourism classes through accredited through college in high school. So it has always been on my radar of working in the hospitality and tourism industry. It is part of me. It's who I am. And then just like so many others, when I lost my career in 2020, I had to, because my husband is a disabled veteran, he works part-time, he's a football coach. We needed something that would support our family. I immediately took the best and favorite part of my job in hospitality, which was marketing, strategic marketing, marketing plan development, and social media, and literally just started freelancing. And I remember when I made my first $75, it was the biggest deal. It was huge. And that probably should have been worth like $500, but I did it for $75. But one thing my dad told me was, who grew up with parents owning their own business, was to save your very first dollar. So I still have my first dollar of that $75 sitting on my desk. So that was 2 years ago. So fast forward, this past fall, social media management side has just been growing. It's been exploding. But I found through my years of working in hospitality and with event planners that event planners are so busy that they were missing a critical component to their event marketing strategy, and that was on-site event marketing management. So literally in November of last year, I launched the service where my team and I go to events. We take photos and videos in the moment, and we're posting them instantly to Facebook and Instagram stories. We're making reels, we're capturing content, and we're posting while we're at that event. to create that FOMO effect of people who were like, dang it, I should have registered. Now I've got to come next time or their next event. So we had that part. We've gained a couple clients doing that. And then my next plan, which my husband has been very supportive in telling me I should have done from the beginning, was to launch the event management side of event services, specializing in corporate events. And I really wanted to launch last month, but I onboarded a bunch of new hotels for social media management. So hopefully here soon, I'll officially be able to launch Events by KC, which will literally just take that burden off of these businesses who don't necessarily have an event manager on staff. You know, it's that office manager that's doing all the things. That's where we come in, and with our marketing background, because we all know that events is a critical part of marketing, to come in and just swoop in and take care of that for everybody.
Definitely.
I
Thank you
just
so
want
much.
to jump in here real fast and point out the value of what she was just talking about. Because before we started this webinar, I took photos and they're like, oh, you're going to post them? Later, because I got to focus, right? You can't do all the things. So you need to know when you can outsource it to someone else. There's a lot to be said for posting things in the moment. But worst case, yes, capture it and then hire someone else to do that for you, or just save it later, because
Yeah.
not all of us have that wonderful benefit of someone coming with us, like what Kara does.
Touching on that, could you guys share some of your biggest, challenges that you faced when starting your business and how you overcame those to where you are now?
Yeah. I can go first.
Off that, yeah.
Not knowing, I knew I needed to register my business, right? Okay, legally, I need to get an LLC. I needed to, register with the IRS, do all those things, but I didn't know what to do next. And I remember, and I'm going to just be vulnerable and honest here, I registered with the state of Oregon incorrectly, like I had employees. So again, remember my first payday was $75. Well, I received a employment tax bill from the state of Oregon saying that I owed like $6,000 for the time period ending in that month that I only made my $75. I started frantically freaking out. So the biggest, called them. They're like, oh, it shows that you have employees. I go, no, it's just me. I'm a solopreneur right now. I wish I had a good resource to go to. And I was just talking about this. I also own a co-working space. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs and startup businesses here in our space. And the one thing that they are looking for is free or affordable resources that will help them. And if there were free and affordable resources for these micro small business owners or entrepreneurs, I would have clasped onto that quickly.
So I want to jump in to follow this, since you mentioned free. That is going to be my little segue for the one drum that I beat consistently, which is to create blog content and video content and to share it, because those are the free resources that people need. And so when they have the money, they will come and hire you, right? So if we have other independent agencies here, please, that is perfect case study example of what people need to start with, and is that entry door of expertise. And I'll follow that with one of my biggest struggle with someone who is not shy, in case you didn't notice, and has no problem talking to strangers. But when it came to selling the ideas inside my head and the strategy that I was coming up with, as opposed to software or a physical ad placement or even an idea of something to people, when it was someone else's name on the door, I was like, oh no, this is 100%. Either you take this solution or we walk away. This is fine. But then when I had to sell my own ideas and knew that I had a mortgage that also was relying on me getting cash in the door, because they don't accept credit cards for those things, I got really nervous and I got very insecure very fast about, well, why would someone buy my ideas? And I literally had the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. Well, you're really good at this. You have the background. You know events more than any other marketing agency in DC, which is where I originally started the company. So I really had a very big mental hurdle to overcome of, just because it's under my name now does not change any of the massive experience that I have in the past. And this is something that getting a business coach was monumental. It was by far the largest investment that I made in my business, but it was also the one that came back to me and got returned in the next 2 sales within 2 months because I did what they told me to do. And sure enough, when you do that, it works.
Love
I
to.
have to
That's the
agree.
best. Like, I knew my limitations. I was like, here's what I am struggling with. Yes, quite frankly, I'm throwing money at this problem. And that money did go on a credit card. But I also knew that if I was going to put a big investment into someone else who seemed like my person who was going to teach me, I was going to do what they told me to do.
Mhm.
And it resulted in that. And it really helped me overcome it. And now I'm like, no, I know absolutely this is either the right fit client for me or it's not. And if it's not, that's totally fine. I am not everybody's cup of tea. That's okay. I also do not have the time, bandwidth, or desire to work with everyone. I want to have a life as well, right? Like, you can't take on every client. And so now that's something I work actively to teach other people. Like, saying no is very hard. And also feeling confident in what's in your head when it's not a tangible thing you're giving somebody can also very much be a struggle.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, Channing. Like I had that same problem. You know, you're in 25 years of leadership, you're building teams, you're helping people develop, and then suddenly you have your own business and you're looking at what else is out there and you're like, okay, well, how, you know, is it okay that I'm out here and who's gonna want this? And so I had that same feeling, and it's, you know, you have to find, like, for me, I had to find, you know, my differentiator and like how I felt about how I was different from everybody else, and to know that it's okay that there are people out there doing the same thing. There's millions of people in the world and millions of women that need the service, and not everybody can service everybody. So yeah. Yeah, but I would say like my biggest challenge in starting out Boss Track was my experience had been, you know, I was at an executive level when I left corporate, and, you know, I had people doing the tasks, you know, the things that needed to get done, and I was there to coach and mentor and give feedback and set the priorities and, you know, make sure that everybody knew what the goals were. So when I moved into starting my own business, and I, like both of you, I bootstrapped my business. So I, you know, I didn't have funding to rely on to hire all these people. So I was and still am doing some of it. Like, you have to get into the details of like, what is my marketing? Like, how do I plan my marketing? How do I effectively implement the marketing? Getting out on social media, learning what does that look like? And what do I do? And what do I focus on? And even bookkeeping, I mean, to actually like put expenses into QuickBooks and, you know, close the books and make sure the tax accountants are getting everything they need. And the worst for me is IT, because everything that we do, we are on a website, and we have a learning management system. We have all of our courses are on that. And then we have our community is connected, and suddenly if one thing breaks, then I am the one that goes in and tries to figure out what that is, and that can totally disrupt your day. So thankfully I'm starting to
The specialist to all of us that you're like, yes, this is it. This is my lane. I know it. Now it's like, well, that's good. You need to know your lane, but you got to know all these other lanes
yes,
and make sure that
yes,
you either know enough to do it or you know enough when to throw money at that problem and have somebody else do it for you.
yes,
That's a lot of
yes.
pressure.
Yeah, and I completely like what you said about finding free resources. I mean, that's what I had to do, because I had to learn a lot of this. I mean, I was exposed to a lot of it in my career, but a lot of it I didn't know. And I joined a bunch of networking groups where I could reach out and ask questions. I watched videos. I started following people, and I just, you know, learned how to do it.
Thank you. So yeah, you've shared a lot of takeaways as well, but if there are any additional or any advice that you would give to others looking to either grow in their career or start a business themselves, love to hear
I
that.
think either way, I think it always comes back to actually the thing that was probably what my father saw it as a wonderful thing, but my teachers thought was absolutely annoying on every report card, was that she asked a lot of questions. And yeah, I've always asked a lot of questions, which paid off very well in a career in journalism, because that was literally what I was paid to do, is to ask a lot of questions and then pull it all together to something that other people would understand. But I think whether you are in a corporate environment with events or you are independent, if you do not know something, just ask. Someone else will do it. There's nothing wrong with not having all the answers. And I think the pandemic kind of brought this to light more so than anything else, of like, we are humans, all of us. We have dogs, we have kids, we wear pajamas. Like, these are things. We are not always in a buttoned up environment sitting in an office, like, office space scenario here. Like, that is not realistic. And so if we can remember that in all of the different facets of, like, if I don't know everything, guess what? No one else knows everything too. So we just got to ask questions. If someone else has an awesome event and you want to find out, or a cool business, and they're like, hey, how did you do that? Just ask. Worst case scenario, they're going to be like, I don't have time to talk right now, or let's do it later, or something. Like, they can't say anything worse than no. And if they do, they're not really something you probably want to be associating with anyways. So like, just ask questions. You will probably get a lot more information out of people and assistance, I think, from others than you will get criticisms from anyone else. Because anyone that has been there before is like, oh yeah, I've asked a lot of questions of a lot of different people. And that saves you time from having to spend it digging through yourself. Just raise your hand. I don't know. Can you help me with this? Boom. I send links to stuff all the time. I don't have time to explain it individually to every person, but that's why I write it. Then you can read it step by step or watch the video and it's all there.
Yeah, I agree. Leverage your networks. For me, it was wanting to be around like-minded female business owners. And because at the time, now there is quite a bit of groups and events since things are opening up. But when I started my women's events in 2021, I started it because we're all going through the same thing of owning a business or starting a business or being a leader in your business. And we have questions, just like you were saying, Channing. And so my group, the format of what I created for everybody is, what are you working on right now and how can we help you? And so it is an open format that leads to these questions that these women have been wanting to ask. They're just not sure. And it's a collaborative effort. So instead of just asking one-on-one, we have, depending on the amount of people that show up, anywhere from 10 to 30 ladies in the room together that can help answer these questions. So leverage your network, find like-minded professionals, whether you're a business owner or a leader in your industry, or mastermind groups. I highly recommend researching mastermind groups that can either be industry specific to the events world, or because it's good to ask people outside of the industry, a mastermind group that has multiple different industries in it.
Or your target audience.
Yeah, your target
something
audience.
else you can do, right? If you're like, I want to find from this, go jump into any of whoever your target audience is, whether it's the clients or the attendees for your event, go to some of their networking events. It is fantastic for market research. Or jump into a Facebook group. That's also a fantastic way, and probably my favorite and only business way of spending time on Facebook is in the group. See what people are talking about and offer insights when you can, or ask questions. If you need to understand who your target audience is in some way, that is a wonderful way to do it, is to get to know them. And then you can create events and or create marketing that is directly tailored to what their biggest pain points are, because you know them directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
The only thing I would like to add, I'm sorry not to belabor everything, because I agree with everything Channing and Kara said, but going back to where, you're starting a business and it's your name on the door, you can tend to be a perfectionist and want everything to be perfect. And you really have to get out of that mindset, because you're never going to get anything out the door and delivered, and you need to start generating sales. So you basically need to get a minimum viable product. And I know people talk about that a lot, but just somebody from experience, it's very true. Like, you can just get caught up in, like, I just need to do this one more thing, or, oh, I don't like that, I need to just do this one more thing before we release. And it can happen, and you're delayed so long before you even know it.
And I think that's also a good point as to why you need to have those external resources and ask for help from other people. something else, because we don't necessarily know, like you may be getting caught up in the details and you need someone, the outside perspective of like, yeah, all that thing would be nice, but like release the pressure from yourself, go with this and forget the rest of it for now. Put a
Yes.
pin, you can come back, your business won't die if you don't do every social post every single day. Because I don't do that, right? I can't. It's just not reasonable. But it took a long time to learn that. So like having someone else look at what you're doing or what you're prioritizing and give you some input could be really beneficial for your sanity as well as your time management.
Nice. I do want to jump into a question, or we have a few questions coming in, but I do want to go on one based off starting your business. How do you, from Kaylee Hansen, how do you figure out your pricing? Do you charge hourly rates or a one-time fee payment? What are the dependent and independent factors?
This took a lot of trial and error, and it wasn't until last year when I joined a 6-month mastermind group that really helped me put together my pricing, because there's so much more than just your time that goes into pricing. But are you adding labor in if you're needing extra help? Or if like you're sick and you need to pay somebody else. So you always want to add labor into your pricing. You need to sit and figure out how long it's going to take you. So a lot of my pricing is packaged. So how long does it take you to do each task? And then how much is it going to be if this certain task is not done by you? So you're going to have to, so there's so much more, but research. But ultimately for me, it was paying for this mastermind that gave me like the hard numbers to be able to truly put my pricing together.
Okay, so I have some thoughts of that. I have oh my God, hourly rates. I will never promote that ever, ever. Because as you get better at what you do, it should be taking you less time. That is a compound effect, right? You want to talk like compound interest in the finance world. Just you invested a smaller amount in the beginning, but as it starts to grow, you may not have to do as much work, but you're still getting more money out of this, right? Well, as you get better at your job, you should not be getting paid less because you work more efficiently. And if you were someone like me who, or any of the rest of us who own our own business, I did not start my own business to work 60 and 70 hours a week. Hard pass. So as I start to cut down my hours, I still want my revenue to increase because I am very specific and diligent about what I do. Like I don't offer social media management. Kara, fantastic referral for that, because I know I do not love it. I am not awesome at it, nor do I have any desire to spend my time doing it, right? Like that is not where my passion lies. It is not where my time is better spent or my energy. So you're in a creative industry as an event professional. That takes a lot of energy and creativity to come up with the things that you are, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I get exhausted after building a website. I'm like, my brain doesn't want to function anymore. It's like, nope, we've come up with all the things. No more thoughts are coming out of our head today. Like, that's where it's at. So I think Kara's right. Knowing where you're on a rough scale, how long is this project going to take me? Put a number to it that you think from an hour's perspective. Like, if you were to get paid hourly, what would you think is acceptable? Then add on, okay, but how long did it take me to learn to do this in that amount of time? Put a number to that, whether it's 25% more, 30% more, I don't care what it is. Then if you're doing individual services, it is 30% on for taxes, 30% on top of whatever it's for taxes, and that can be the quote that goes off. If you're working with clients that have a variety of budgets, because planner specific is different when it comes to doing commission or taking a percentage of the overall budget. You can take a percentage. I have some clients that do that instead, but I always tell them, okay, but also think about how much time are you going to be spending on this and how much energy is every hour going to suck from your life? An hour working with some clients is a whole lot less stressful than an hour working with other clients. So you really want to factor in how your life is going to be affected and how much you put into that hour. It's like walking for an hour and running for an hour, 2 different levels of energy. Is this a walking client or a running client? And then I think you can start to figure it out. But always add 30% for taxes, always. You should not have that taken out of your paycheck because Uncle Sam needs the money.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. Awesome.
It's a really good question. Pricing is hard and it will continue to evolve. It is never a set thing.
Talking about
inflation.
Yeah, talk about evolving. Our next question. how do you continue to grow professionally in a constantly changing industry? And if you could talk about some of the industry changes that you've experienced and how you've adapted. And start with Kara.
Ooh, yeah, and ever changing. Well, it's funny because I had been out of the industry for a couple years, and then everything's been virtual. And I have a little different motivation. And I talked about this briefly before when we all kind of first met before we went live, is like, I won't do virtual events. I lost my entire career because of virtual events. Like I was selling event space for people to physically be in. So I love things like this. I hop on them. I am more of a hands-on, in-person. You cannot sell emotion as well virtually as you can when you are just in the room with somebody. And I'm like an empath. I can feel everybody. So that's been the hardest pivot for me, is knowing where I'm going to set my personal boundaries as a business owner. And with my women's events, all the time, the ladies ask, will you be recording this? And I say, no, I'm sorry that it won't meet everybody's schedule, but I want to see you. I started these women's events because I needed that one-on-one interaction. So the moments for me has just been learning what I'm willing to do as a business owner and what I'm willing to like refer to somebody else. I'm always staying in tune to what's going on, and that is extremely important and critical. And but for me, that has been a definite like learning moment and pivot.
Nice. Thank you. I'm
I feel
gonna
like
jump in.
Michelle has some good thoughts here.
Oh yeah, Michelle. Yes, love to hear some of the challenges and how you've adapted.
Oh, so yeah, I think for me, I've definitely focused on virtual. So everything that we do is virtual. And it's interesting with coming out of the pandemic, everybody is now wanting to meet in person and be, you know, fine. So what we've had to do is find ways to create those opportunities where we could bring people together in person. It's just been very challenging to be like such a small business. Like we're here in Miami, so we are doing in-person events here in Miami, and we have a schedule of them for this year. But hopefully, you know, as we continue to grow, we'll do the events in other cities. But that is kind of the biggest thing for us, is that, you know, we were founded on the basis of being virtual, and now to try to give people that in-person community as well, where we can. It's added a little bit of a different flavor into the business model.
Nice.
I was gonna say, I think it's one of these things that I'm gonna come back to the energy point of, I think it's good to know where the competitive landscape is. Like, what are other people offering that you are offering? How are they putting it out there? But also finding that line, for like a firm line in the sand of, okay, and now we're done. We're tuning all of this out. We're not continuing to research everything, because you can get sucked into a comparison trap.
Yeah.
Like Michelle is like, I'm moving to in person. Okay, that's great. It would be fantastic to have a satellite event all around the country, but that is not realistic right now. So like, do the one step, do it well. And then once that proves itself, then you can move on to the next one. I see people take on a lot trying to be competitive with others or to be like ahead of the game in this, and their quality of life suffers, their health suffers. That's another reason why I'm very big with the energy portion of like, you have to take care of your physical health, or everything else in your business or your life will start to fall apart. And that just sounds like a miserable way to live. Nevertheless, not why you started your own business if you have one, right? Like, you don't want to be miserable. None of us want to be miserable. So you have to prioritize your physical health as well. And then whatever ideas come out of your head and things when you're working with other people will all be much more positive. Like, if you physically feel like crap, everything else stems from that. So I think being able to see what other people are doing, and then also taking that step back and realizing, all right, okay, maybe going down the rabbit hole, it's time to stop being Alice and shut it all off and move on with what you know in your gut is that right next step for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, let's from that, because we have a couple questions about this topic too, might jump into how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance, and what tips would you give to others trying to do the same? And we can start back with you, Channing, or we can
Sure. So I do not have it showing in this fantastic virtual background, unfortunately. But I am an endurance runner, which means I run marathons for fun. And so that takes a tremendous amount of time for training, which usually going into a cycle, it does become a part-time job. The way that the balance is, it really starts with like, I train before other people are awake. I am running at 6 o'clock in the morning pretty consistently. Sometimes I get to do it as a lunch break, which is fantastic. But usually, if I want to get my training in, and this is something like it really can take 20 plus hours a week to get all the things done you need to, that's just this one portion of life. I have to. Like, this makes me happier. I am a very big advocate and board member for the Heart Association. So like I very much practice what I preach. Not everyone needs to be a marathoner. I get that. But it's getting up early, and it is not harping on myself if things have to change. It's just being consistent. Whatever it is that you choose to do it consistently. And also recognize that, like, well, sometimes like today, this is in the middle of a lunch break. I couldn't get up early this morning. So like, okay, we're going to have to shift and do it in the afternoon. Things can move around as long as they just continually to happen, and kind of every step is there. It's also learning how to say no to things. Like my new favorite line, which my friends laugh at, but is very effective, is like, thank you, but no. You don't have to always explain everything else, but like sometimes it's just like, that is very wonderful and thank you for thinking of me, but no. And you have to go, like, you can only do one thing. You cannot do all of the things, right? None of us can do all of the things. So pick the things that really matter. If it's time with the kids, great. Pick the kids up after school, spend time with them. Your emails and everything will still be there after 8 o'clock when they have gone to bed. And if anything is truly an emergency, I guarantee you people are going to call you. They're not going to email you. So like, if you have to just shift your work hours to get that afternoon break with family time, that is what you do. You still get it done in a day. You just put 2 hours of work after bedtime as opposed to 2 hours when you actually could be with those tiny humans that you like.
Yeah. And as Michelle and Kara, you're both mothers, we have a question. As a first-time mom, how can you balance your family and continue to grow your career? How do you be a great mom and boss lady at work?
I don't know. I have lots of answers. Michelle, do you want to go?
It might be better for you to go, because mine are out of the house and they're on their own and have their own challenges outside
Yeah.
of like I can definitely say when I was growing up in my career, because I was a mom early on in my career, a single mom, and it became very hard to balance. And I can't say that I did a great job at it. It's, you have to love your children and give them the time and energy that they need, but also you have your career that you're building. So there's a balance. You need to give your time to that career. And especially when you're growing as a leader, and, it's not just the 9 to 5, there are times when I would pick up my kids and bring them to my office. And it was great because all the other people working in the office became their play buddies, and they would have their soccer ball and somebody would take a break and play soccer with them. So it's funny, like a lot of their memories of growing up are those fun times they had working with me in the office, because they got to play with so many people. So probably not the best story of a happy, a happy balance, but that's exactly how it worked.
I was that kid stuffing envelopes that my dad did the original direct mail marketing. Didn't realize that's what it was at the time. He was just like, yeah, you're going to come to work and you're going to stuff envelopes and we'll do this together. And I was like, ooh, fun times with my dad.
Yeah.
Now I know what's happening there. But it made a difference. There's nothing wrong with that. If it works, it works.
Yeah. Somebody just posted it. I don't think I agree. There is no work-life balance. Work is your life and your personal life is also your life. And it's not necessarily a balance, but just knowing how you're spending your time. And I remember when I was working in the hospitality industry, being in sales, I traveled, I went to trade shows. I remember when I had my daughter, she's 9 now, And as soon as I could go back to work, because I love work, and it is okay to say that as a parent, it is absolutely okay to not feel guilty for wanting to work. Let me just let everybody know that. But I was a nursing mom, so I and was a very big advocate on breastfeeding and nursing in the workplace and in the hospitality industry. But I traveled at 3 months, and I just brought my pump with me, and I made it work, and just brought a little cooler. Definitely have totally brought my kids into the office. Find an employer that respects mothers. That's a really big deal. And if they don't understand the needs of a parent, then you shouldn't be working for them. I hate to say that, but there's not really a work-life balance. And then, especially being a business owner, what I love the most is that my kids, now that they're 14, almost 14, my son will be 14 next month, and then my daughter's 9. They get to see mom, they get to building her business, and they get to come into the co-working space and sweep and wipe down tables and do some recycling or loading the dishwasher here at the co-working space. I remember when I started my business, my KC Creative, my marketing business, and I was still working at home before I realized co-working was a thing. And I would do my videos just like this. And I would be like, hi, I'm Kara from KC Creative. And then in the background, my kids are like, hi, I'm Kara from KC Creative. Like they're mimicking me. But that's just, you're raising these children that get to see their parents building this legacy for them, whether you're a leader in a company working for somebody else or you own your own company. I live off my Google Calendar. Everything goes in the calendar. So yes, my daughter's in gymnastics, competitive gymnastics. We're gone a lot. I just take my laptop with me. They have Wi-Fi at the gym athletic center, and we just do it because that's who we are. We're humans, and that's it.
Tying that to Michelle's point earlier about IT, make sure all of your stuff is on the cloud, whether that is SharePoint, that is Google Drive, that is iCloud, it does not matter. Make it so that you could sit down at my computer and do your job if you needed to. That helps give you the physical flexibility to still be on top of things, even if you are not in front of your computer, or if you need to answer things on your phone, there is nothing wrong. You can sit there, and while your kid is waiting to bat at a baseball game, you can be paying attention to an email. You can hear things as well as answer quick questions that come up. It's the priorities, which I think the chat is also coming with here. Nothing is ever an even balance. It's just a matter of, it goes back and forth. Like that's what I think about balance, is that sometimes we're going to be a little heavy on the personal side and lighter on the work. And then it's going to go the other way for maybe a week or 2 weeks. But across the board, as long as these continually are going back and forth, that to me is where the balance is. It's when one of them takes over the other one and it's stagnant. That's where I think we lose balance. And maybe it's kind of a misnomer to say a work-life balance, but like, as long as things are shifting, they may shift up and down, but as long as they keep moving between the two priorities, I think that's when you've achieved something along the lines of balance.
Yeah. You can just swipe through, like my son, 14-year-old's texting me right now. Can you pick me up early? Because he knows I'm heading to Portland, and he loves Portland tonight because I've got a meeting this evening. It's just the way it is. I'm like swiping off my screen, his text messages.
But that's also another positive thing, right? That came out of the pandemic, is people got to see, like, we are still humans. We have lives. There are things outside of this computer and this work environment that also matter. And if you're I don't remember which one of you said it because I was following the chat, to be honest, but one of you said that, like, you need to find a boss who supports that. So if you have a manager who doesn't support the fact that you have a life outside of that office or outside of that responsibility, then it's time to reevaluate. Is the work aspects of that truly outweighing what I would see as a super negative that's happening there, right? Everything's pros and cons, I think, across the life board. And if they're not supportive of that, that might be something that you need to reevaluate, because there are a lot of people that are independent as well as corporate. There are a lot of big companies and a lot of teeny tiny ones that really support humans.
I also want to share, Michelle shared, but it was just with us, I like to say work-life integration.
Yeah.
That was good.
That's a good point.
Yes. And I think it's important too that you just have to be intentional, because if you're not staying aware, and you can easily it can easily be work heavy, and suddenly your kids are feeling like they're being neglected. So you just have to really be intentional with involving them, making sure you're spending the time with them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to take another question from the audience. Vanessa, we're a very lean team and feeling the burnout, so it's time to grow our team. How do you begin to grow your team, and what are the must-haves before growing a team? So going from solo entrepreneurs to growing a team, what advice do you have for Vanessa and others?
I think the first step would be determining, do you really need someone full-time, or can you do a contractor? Contractors are less expensive. Forget the whole headcount part, which I think corporate loves to use the word, we can't have any more headcount. What they're saying is we can't afford to pay benefits for one more person on the team, right? So can you take that, like whatever budget you have, could that be allocated to a contractor? Or do you really have the workload and the consistent workload, whatever the size of your business, for someone that is full-time? I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And I watched a large corporation do this recently, is they hired a bunch of people, and then 6 months later I had to lay them off because they didn't have the long-term consistent benefit to keep them, right? You need to make sure that you have reoccurring revenue that will be able to pay for that person. And I think there's a lot of contractors, or someone had a question about white labeling, and this could kind of tie into that. If you're overrun with this, is there someone else who has a complementary service or does what you do, but maybe for a different target audience, right? Your job description on paper and who you actually want to work with are two different things. So like Kara and I would both be considered marketing professionals, but she does things I'm not willing to do. And I guarantee that I do things she is not interested in doing. So that creates on paper, we may be the same, but we work with very different people, right? And we provide different services and a different personality that comes along with that. So you could look at partnership first. You could look at a contractor. And then when it comes to hiring full-time, I'm defer to someone else because it's not my area of expertise. I have opinions. I don't have facts. So.
Love that. Thank you.
Michelle, do you have any contract? Do you work with people or employees?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I am working with contractors just because I don't feel like I'm at the point, to Channing's point, to support an employee unless they're going to be the jack of all trades, which is fine. They could be. I maybe I'm ready for that, but making sure that I'm doing my forecasting and projecting, and making sure that I can long-term support that person, because I wouldn't want to bring somebody on that a year from now I'm saying, okay, sorry, I need to let you go. With contractors, I mean, they come into it knowing that it could be long-term, it could be short-term. And they can fill those roles that you need.
Yeah, I have 3 contractors that have pretty consistent hours with me. One of them I am converting to an employee in April.
Okay.
So it is a new process, and it's kind of scary. Again, I call my friends at the state of Oregon, make sure I'm not messing up on anything this time. And they've been wonderful. Actually, I have a direct contact with the state, and she gave me all these documents. But if you're going to go from contractor to employee, just keep track of everything. So yeah.
It was a great point. You made me think of something else, that one of the other biggest mistakes I hear, and that I have also watched people do when they are hiring, is forgetting that every new person that comes in is one more person you need to manage. So it can be really great to be like, okay, I can't handle this anymore. We're bringing you in. You're going to take some of the load off. But before, whether they are a contractor or they are a full-time employee, before they take the load off of you, they're going to put a lot more load on you because you still have to onboard them. So once you've looked at the revenue and making sure you can consistently have them, and that you have the workload to keep them busy for whatever salary you're going to be paying them, also look at, is now the time, like, do I have the time now to teach them how to do what I need them to? Because if you don't, it will only make everybody more stressed. So you want to really make sure you have that paying attention to, and that you want to be a manager. One of my friends found out the hard way. He's like, I hate this. I don't want to be the manager anymore. I'm not interested. I have to, but he's like, I really wish I would have considered that beforehand. So someone else's experience for you. Make sure it's what you really want.
Yeah, it goes back to your pricing. You need to make sure that you are priced to be able to pass off everything that you would typically do to somebody else. And it has to make sense if you're going to contract somebody or to hire somebody financially. So if your product or service isn't priced where it needs to be, then don't commit to anything like that until you are actually selling your product and service for the price that it needs to be. I wasn't doing that until about 6 to 9 months ago. Once I converted my pricing and could forecast and was getting that consistent revenue, I knew where I could grow. And for me, growth is adding somebody, so that way I can pass on everything and I can just focus on business development.
Nice. There's a lot of learnings as a leader and a founder. Our next question is, how do you show up and support your teams or your clients being a leader or founder? And take this. Channing, you ready to go?
Sure. I mean, it is. I think the first step, which I try to do with all of mine, is one, I don't hold, like, I always try to be both positive, but also realistic. Like, I don't, as I hope you have noticed today, I don't have a problem sharing the things that have been a struggle for me, because the reality is that everyone has this. If you come across like, nope, I got it figured out all the time. You know what? This is it. We're going to be amazing. Everyone's a cheerleader. I got a lot of cheerleading awards when I was in high school. It was fantastic. No one is happy and positive all the time, and things are not good all of the time. So I think being kind of letting transparency come through and letting that barrier down, showing that, like, I see that there are struggles, I have been there, or like, you know what, y'all, today's a rough day. So we're going to just buckle down and do what we can, but then we're going to move back to our separate corners and we're going to have tomorrow as a new day. So we're going to tackle one thing at a time. I think it is important to show the team that you are also a human. You do not always have it together, because I used to have, managers over me that seemed like, oh yeah, everything was fine. They were never stressed. And it was total bullshit. I was like, I know that y'all are stressed, but you make those under you feel like they are missing something, or that they might not be as mature or experienced or prepared for the job, because you seem to have it together. No one has it together at all the times. Yeah, I think showing I totally get it, but also here's how we move forward. Right? It's like, did anyone ever hear from their boss or say to an employee, like, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions? Yeah. I have a client who tells this to her employees all the time. She's like, if they have a problem, anyone on my team can come and talk to me, but they also need to have a potential solution, or they need to tell me the 10 solutions they tried that didn't work and they've hit a wall. But like, you got to come with something. You need proactive employees. And I think you get that by demonstrating that you are both a safe space, but that you also have certain standards you expect them to rise to. Everyone wants expectations.
I was going to piggyback on what Channing was talking about, because this is like our thing. Like, our leadership model is the authentic leader model, and for us, it's you have to be authentic, you have to be real, you have to be able to have the honest, critical conversations. And because the important thing when you have a team is you need to build trust with that team, and that's really what a lot of what we focus on is how to build trust with your team. And the fundamental way to do that is through looking at yourself and being self-aware and being authentic to who you truly are, while obviously knowing what needs to get done and holding people accountable to their agreements. But the other thing too is really taking on that coaching leadership style. So that we have an art. I've been getting asked a lot about micromanaging lately, so we actually have an article coming out about that. But making sure that you are confident in yourself and your team and building that trust, so that the work is going to be done. You can coach them along the way where they need it, and not become that micromanager that people don't want to work for.
Mhm. Transparency has always been big with me. I was just telling one of my contractors yesterday, the one that I want to turn into an employee. My contractors are all local. I want to support local and pay a decent wage. So I tell them my wins. Like anytime I get a discovery call with clients, a proposal goes out, I have financial transparency with my contractors even. Yeah, they know how much my contracts are worth, they know how long they are for, and I just, whether I win the client or I lose the client, and the whys. For me, that's really important because I want, no matter if they're contractors or not, I want them to be like Team KC Creative. I want them to be supportive. And even though one of my contractors kind of does his own thing on the side as well and gets other clients, he knows that he is Team KC Creative and that I am team him. Like I am very supportive of him. He comes to me and even has me look at some of his pricing when he's quoting people. He does a lot of photography and videography, like content creation for our events as well as other people's events, and just social media in general. So that coaching component, I want them to grow and grow with KC, but I also want them to grow as professionals too. So if I can provide that coaching, absolutely. But again, financial transparency. Most of all my team knows how much KC Creative is bringing in on a monthly basis, and even contract by contract. They know my faults when I started my business of charging too low, and they know that some of the clients that they work on, I'm losing money on because I just priced them too low when I was starting my business.
I think it's good for the financial standpoint too, for those going back to the contractor point. If you are hiring contractors, if you've worked with someone and they gave you a certain rate and you saw the quality of their work and they are worth more, pay them more.
Mhm.
I literally just told this to one of my contractors that I was like, okay, this next quote is like, figure out, what you think it is for this. And I had a number in my head of what I thought she was worth. And I was like, yeah, from now on, you need to start charging more. And here's what because I'll take what she is going to charge me as a contractor, which also works if you're partnering or doing like white label services, which was one of the questions earlier. Is that you take whatever their rate is, then you add yours, right, for the agency fee essentially that comes with it. Then you add the taxes. The client is still, they're getting one number from you, but you also know that you're paying your contractors, you're paying your team members what they are actually worth. And it does take a lot of times, especially as women, unfortunately, for someone else to tell us what they think what we're bringing to the table is worth, versus us walking in and being like, yep, here's the amount of money that I should get paid. That takes a lot of guts. I've done this business for a while. And even when I sent off my largest contract ever, I was like, oh, good. I hope they pay for it. Like,
Yes.
oh my God, I hope they sign. I hope they sign. I hope they see. I hope I made my case clear enough. It's why I'm worth every penny. There's still a lot of insecurity that happens with that. And it doesn't matter how long you've been in business. I think every time you add another zero, it's like, but are they really going to pay it? Are they really? Are we sure? And so having someone else kind of reaffirm that and or give you a gut check of like, you're shooting for the stars a little high there, maybe bring it down, and in another year or 6 projects or whatever it is, gets more experience, then you can go up to that number. Having that network or someone else to ask about it can also be very beneficial.
Nice. On that, yeah, we're running out of time, but I definitely wanted to just end on, if each of you could give just like one piece of advice to the next generation of female leaders or women entering the event industry in a few seconds or less, so we can get that before we end today.
Talk to strangers. My best piece of advice at all times. Worst case scenario, someone is super odd, never talk to them again. But like best case, you never know who you can meet, number one. And like not everybody wears their budgets or all of their resources or their connections on their body, right? You cannot tell with this. So if you talk to people, say hi to a stranger, you never know who you're going to meet or who they could refer you to or how you could help each other. Like just in life, talk to strangers.
Okay. Love it.
So I was going to say the exact same thing Jennings said, but I was also going to add that you need to find a mentor. I mean, it's so on both sides. So one, find a mentor that you can talk to about challenges you're facing in your career right now. And when you realize that you've outgrown that mentor, don't be afraid to find a new mentor, but make sure that you're treating that mentor relationship with respect and respecting their time, and that they're giving you their time in return for you hearing them. And yeah, the other thing too is, I know we're talking about International Women's Day, and I want to say real quick that companies, if you're an executive in a company, you need to be providing the mentorship opportunities for other women. And it's not that you have to be the mentor itself, but encouraging your people to find a mentor and providing those connections, and also focusing on sponsorship and making sure that if you identify somebody in the company that has potential, high growth potential, make sure you are talking about them in the rooms that they're not in, and supporting them so other people can hear, and they can be like leveraged through their career.
Ditto. And the biggest thing is mindset. You can do whatever you're wanting to do. It's usually what we're telling ourselves that stops us from doing whatever it is we want to do. And a big thing is when you're thinking of starting your business or launching a new product or going for a promotion, etc., or trying to get this one client, we worry about too much what other people think that we may be thinking about. So we need to really just do it. We talked about this with we end up being a perfectionist and then end up maybe not posting on social media or end up not launching a product. It is solely on our mind. So if there's anything, which was a question, and that is self-care. Focus on your mind. If you need to get a life coach that really helps you through it, or counseling, or somebody that will help you with your mindset, do it.
I love all of that. Thank you so much. I know we're a little over time, so thanks for all of you who stayed after. A special thank you to all of our speakers today for leading such a great discussion. And we're just so glad that you wanted to celebrate International Women's Day with us. So thanks for being part of this empowering event, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Please reach out. LinkedIn, Instagram, you can find all of us on both, right? Just start typing in the name, everybody will pop up. We'd love to keep talking to you.
Yeah, connect with all of us. And this is recorded, and you will receive a recording after the event is over. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.